Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We have got the feed, ladies, for our round one game between Joan and Calcs, and they're going to get into it momentarily, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you are ready for a fun round one top 32 bracket.
Yeah, we've talked a bit about this matchup already, but just to refresh you guys on the team, we have on Joan's side, we have the Pelipper, Basculegion, Thunderous Therian Form, Amoonguss, Hisuian Gudra, and Fluttermane. Meanwhile, on Calc's side, we have Dondozo, Ceruledge, Urshifu Single Strike, and then the Chinpao and the Tatsugiri and Fluttermane. Yeah, so we have, obviously two different styles of archetypes, two different sort of game modes, two different sort of game plans, and we've talked a little bit about this matchup already. But yeah, we're seeing a new form of Dondozo taking on the Regulation D form of Rain, and these players are just going to be getting into it momentarily.
Yes, they are. It should be a fun matchup between Joan and Calcs to see how Calcs works around the rain that is set up by Joan's team, or how Joan can pilot around the Dondozo and Tatsugiri set, which, as we've mentioned prior, the Tatsugiri is not the commander variation that we have used to be seeing. This one is running a Gastrodon-like set of the Storm Drain to take in any water type moves, but conversely, that could also affect its teammate Dondozo with the Wave Crash.
Yeah, this Storm Drain Tatsugiri is a very interesting Pokemon to keep an eye on for this matchup, because as a team that relies on such heavy water type damage, it'll be this Tatsugiri coming in and out of the battle will be able to disrupt Joan's game plan. But here we go, turn one, we have Dondozo and Urshifu leading from Calc's side. On Joan's side, we have Pelipper and Fluttermane as the leads. So, we have some pretty offensive leads coming out here. We do have the Urshifu and the Dondozo all by itself, which does have the rain set up. This Dondozo does have Wave Crash, so it does have the ability to fire off some pretty powerful water type attacks right off the bat. But Pelipper, still has the ability to do a lot of damage here, but also can support with either Tailwind or Helping Hand. We'll see if Fluttermane here is going to take advantage of that Helping Hand, or maybe a potential speed boost, or maybe just go on the defensive, maybe predicting some sort of defensive play from the Urshifu. The Urshifu does have Terra Poison, so it can match up pretty well into this Fluttermane if it decides to burn its Terra in this first turn. But yeah, Fluttermane, it's a Pokemon that's capable of doing a lot of damage here, and Pelipper setting up the rain is definitely not a bad thing if you're Calc here, but we'll have to see which Pokemon are going to go on the offensive here.
As the Fluttermane is switched out, so with its booster energy being used, it now loses that boost as the Amoonguss comes in. So now we've got some defense on this field as Calc is going for the turn one Terra into the Urshifu, and now it goes from a Darkened Fighting type into a Poison type. So whatever move that it clicks, it's still going to do damage, but it remains to be seen what the Pelipper goes for, as the Wicked Blow comes out and does a critical hit to the Amoonguss, but it takes the Rocky Helmet damage, and here comes a Hurricane, but the Urshifu lives and gets confused!
Yeah, massive confusion there. Not quite able to pick up the KO, but if the luck of the draw does not fall in Calc's favor, that Urshifu could be as good as gone. I do like this defensive play. I do like the idea of switching out Fluttermane on turn one, but unfortunately Amoonguss had to take a lot of damage from that Wicked Blow. Urshifu is quite strong, so that Amoonguss definitely took a lot of damage there. Pelipper, on the other hand, able to fire off a big Hurricane here. I was worried about how, not very offensive this board state was going to be from Joan's side, but, Pelipper's still threatening a lot of damage here. Hurricane will do a significant chunk to Dondozo, as, it's weaker on the special side, but we're going to see if Urshifu is going to connect through this confusion.
And it goes for the Wicked Blow into the Amoonguss. It KOs, but the Rocky Helmet comes out. The Amoonguss goes down, and I believe the Urshifu also goes down to the Rocky Helmet chip. It does! The Rocky Helmet, as Amoonguss goes down, it takes Urshifu down with it.
Yeah, that's a very, very good trade, I would say. Obviously Amoonguss is a pretty good disruptive Pokemon. But, you know, taking out Urshifu, one of the biggest offensive threats from Calc's side, definitely not a bad trade at all. Pelipper just, you know, going for an attack there, as Dondozo not being targeted this turn is able to now capitalize on that yawn it set up last turn and get a substitute up. So Pelipper now sleeping, not going to be able to do a whole lot as it takes those sleep turns. But Shenpao coming in from Calc's side, as the Basculegion now comes out from Joan's side, now being able to take full advantage of the rain here. But the unfortunate awkward situation here is that you have a Dondozo, which not only resists your water type attacks, but is also behind a substitute. So it's basically going to be able to get a free hit off. Not that it really threatens a whole lot of damage between, you know, into either of these water type Pokemon. But Shenpao, not being able to get double targeted, is able to keep its Focus Sash intact. And there is a Sucker Punch available here. So unless Basculegion wants to burn its Terra, it probably might get KO'd by a Sucker Punch from this Shenpao. Yeah, a Basculegion recognizing that, just going to go for a Protect.
And we have to keep in mind that with the Sucker Punch, the Sword of Ruin with the 25% damage would make this Sucker Punch even more super effective. As the Shenpao goes for the Ice Spinner, the Pelipper does end up living, and Basculegion was protected.
Yeah, I think the Dondozo there going for either a yawn or a just attack into the Basculegion, just trying to disrupt this offense even more. You know, obviously in this situation, your Basculegion is quite threatened here by either, you know, Shenpao's Sucker Punch or just being put to sleep by yawn. So Pelipper not really able to do much here, is just going to switch out.
Yes, it is. Pelipper gets switched out here. In comes the Flutter Mane with the Tailwind, as Basculegion with Aqua Jet does over half health to that Shenpao with the Life Orb and the Rain. And because Aqua Jet went first, the Sucker Punch fails on the Basculegion, which is a brilliant play on Joan's side. But the yawn comes out here on the Basculegion, so now Joan has a choice here.
Yeah, I really like the Aqua Jet play coming out there, because you do comfortably knock out Shenpao with both two Aqua Jets, but you also manage to dance around the Sucker Punch. So Basculegion able to keep most of its HP at the cost of a little bit of Life Orb recall. Also able to get Flutter Mane here. Being able to get Flutter Mane in basically unscathed is really good, because now you have two Pokemon. You're basically in the prime position that you want to be. You're threatening a ton of offense here with two of your most powerful attackers, but the problem is Dondozo is still behind that substitute, and it's going to force you to have to play a little bit defensively in order to dance around those yawns. So Pelipper coming back in here for Basculegion.
And we see the Protect come out on the Shenpao, trying to stay awake for one turn, as Flutter Mane goes for the Dazzling Gleam. This will not hit the Shenpao. It will hit the Dondozo. Will it be enough to break that substitute? It is not enough, as the Wave Crash comes out with the Rain, and Flutter Mane goes down.
Big Wave Crash coming out from Calc's side. This Dondozo being such a disruptive Pokemon, even without the help of Tatsugiri, just sitting behind the substitute and just able to keep threatening yawns, and finally gets an attack off with that Wave Crash. Easy KO onto the Flutter Mane. And now Joan very much backed into a corner here, as there is no rain. Since all they have left are those last two Pokemon, Pelipper unable to be switched out anymore. And now you just have slow Basculegion going up against Shenpao and Dondozo. Still has to worry about, actually now has to worry about Sucker Punch even more now, because it does not have the speed advantage. So now Sucker Punch going to go first and just straight up pick up the knockout on this Basculegion. So Joan, definitely not in a great spot here, just unable to break through that Dondozo, as it's yawn spamming, not even going to need to threaten that much damage for the rest of the game. Just going to need to keep throwing off those yawns and just keep disrupting until Shenpao plus whatever in the back can just clean up the game for Calc, as the Aqua Jet comes out, almost gets the knockout on Shenpao. It lives on just a slither of HP, unfortunately not having the rain to boost up its damage anymore, as Ice Spinner going into the Pelipper easily knocks it out. And now Joan just left to their last Pokemon, as the Dondozo going for another yawn. And basically this next turn, all you gotta do is just click Protect twice, let Basculegion go to bed, and that should be wrapping up this first game for Calc.
Yes, it should be. But at the same time, we have to understand that with the protects, there is always the chance of a guaranteed sleep turn that will allow the Chen Pao to go after one attack and potentially get this finishing blow.
Yeah, interesting to see that. I'm pretty sure that if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think Joan burned their Terra the entire game, which is interesting because, you know, like, obviously the Terra, I mean, Terra didn't really play a huge role at all, actually, because, you know, the Terra Poison obviously meant to protect Urshifu from Fluttermane, but Fluttermane kind of sat in the back while Pelipper and Amoonguss dealt with the Urshifu. So, yeah, but obviously the biggest problem for Joan in that matchup was that Dondozo. And here we thought it was going to be the Tatsugiri that was going to be the big deal here with that Storm Drain ability, just being able to soak up all of Basculegion's water-type attacks. But in the end, Basculegion wasn't able to get it done either, firing off several attacks into Chen Pao and still not able to KO it. So, yeah, very much of going back to the drawing board type moment for Joan here. I wonder how they feel like they need to adjust for this next game.
Yes, and it does show that Chen Pao, even with its massive attack and speed, it can take some hits, even from the Life Orb Basculegion without the rain and with the rain. Aqua Jet was still almost a 2-hit KO or even a 3-hit KO. But it does remain to be seen what Joan will be doing in the back to be able to force a game 3 against this Dondozo, Tatsugiri, Chen Pao, Urshifu, and Fluttermane team. Because as you said, Eric, terrestrialization was not used on Joan's side. Maybe that was deliberate on his part.
Yeah, it's possible. But you know, maybe Basculegion could have accepted that little bit of damage bump without because it did have, there was in a position where it did have to go for an attack without the rain being up, and that's sort of how Chen Pao was able to survive as long as it did, because that last Aqua Jet was just not able to finish the job. But obviously, if you're Joan, you're terrified of that Tatsugiri being in the back, as I think at Calc got a little bit of a taste of what Basculegion was able to do in the right circumstances. But I think the main thing here is keeping up the damage pressure on Dondozo, because you obviously can't rely on Amoonguss to sort of disrupt it, because, you know, the substitute is in play there, so it's probably going to be in a position where it can outspeed and put up that substitute and make it unaffected by Spore. But yeah, Dondozo was a huge roadblock for Joan to get past, just being able to spam yawns and having to continuously cycle out Pokemon and waste rain turns. So I think being able to get as much damage as possible onto Dondozo to make sure it's not a threat, but also have to respect the possible Tatsugiri being in the back. I don't know. We'll see. A lot of things that could go wrong in this second game too. So we'll have to see how these players adjust and whether the game plans will be similar or if they'll be different. But we're going to see Dondozo and Chen Pao now lead from Calc side, as Pelipper and Amoonguss are the leads from Joan's end. So now we have Chen Pao in the lead position here. As we saw, Chen Pao was able to do a lot of very reasonable damage to both of these Pokemon in game 1. Didn't really get a chance to interact with Amoonguss, but it does have to be very careful attacking into Amoonguss here because of that Rocky Helmet. As we saw, that was the demise of Urshifu last game, and obviously the Rocky Helmet will be able to break Chen Pao's Focus Sash, which is probably something it will need later on if it has to go toe-to-toe with something like Basculegion. Taking that extra hit will be very, very useful. But the thing here is Dondozo in a position where it could definitely be a troublemaker. It definitely has the ability to go for a yawn onto either of these Pokemon. Not really threatening a whole lot of damage, but also if you're Joan, you got to be worried about the substitute potential. So Dondozo definitely in a position where it could very much set itself up to be that major annoyance that it was in the last game. But Chen Pao on the offensive first. Ice Spinner into Pelipper does a very good chunk of damage.
As we see the Hurricane come out from the Pelipper into this Dondozo, does a big chunk of damage as Dondozo ends up going for the substitute that it did in game number 1. And Amoonguss goes for the Spore into the Chen Pao slot. So now this Chen Pao is asleep for a guaranteed 1 turn. That Dondozo is behind the substitute that it used to great effect in game 1.
Yeah, Amoonguss finally being able to do something here, putting up a Spore into the Chen Pao. Dondozo eating that Hurricane very, very comfortably and able to get that substitute up. But Yeah, now with Chien-Pao being asleep, Pelipper is not so easily removed here unless you potentially... It's probably in Wave Crash range now that I think about it with the rain up from Dondozo. So that's perfect damage range for Dondozo easily to get rid of its biggest damage threat at this point. Amoonguss, its best attacking move to attack into Dondozo is the Pollen Puff, and this Dondozo is probably trained a lot more defensively now since it's not being relied on as an offensive Pokemon as we saw, it's been able to take special moves with relative ease. So it definitely has a lot of options, but also it just is kind of free to sit on the field and do whatever it wants. As we see Dondozo going for Protect, likely to get some leftovers recovery.
Yes, the Protect will guarantee 1 turn of leftovers recovery. This Chien-Pao will have to stay asleep for its guaranteed 1 turn. As the Pelipper goes for the Hurricane again, this will break the Focus Sash, and it gets the Confusion on top of breaking the Focus Sash as the Amoonguss goes for the Pollen Puff. And Pollen Puff, as we all know, when used on your teammate, it gains 50% of its max HP back instead of doing damage to your teammate.
Yeah, I was wondering if Pollen Puff was going to be the option there for Amoonguss, but into what target? You had the option of getting rid of Chien-Pao, but obviously not a super urgent target considering it has to take a guaranteed sleep turn. But I like healing up your Pelipper there because you give it options to stay on the field and also potentially put it out of range of Ice Spinner, so it potentially has the ability to survive another turn. But Chien-Pao now being confused and asleep, going to be a lot harder to attack with it as a Hurricane goes into Dondozo. We'll see if this is enough to break the substitute, and it looks like it is able to break the substitute. So Dondozo no longer being protected as the Amoonguss going for... Oh, sorry, Dondozo yawning the Amoonguss, but we'll see if Amoonguss is going to return the favor with an immediate sleep with the Spore.
And it does connect with the Spore, so now this Dondozo was guaranteed to take 1 turn of sleep as the leftovers recovery does come out. So it's looking like that Pollen Puff on the previous turn was a smart decision by Joan, as the Pelipper now has free reign to do just about anything it wants to either one of Calc's Pokemon.
Yeah, I was initially kind of worried about, like I said this in the last game, that this board positioning feels a bit passive for Joan, but they're actually getting a lot done with it. Amoonguss being able to spread Spore has actually been a very valuable asset, and the Amoonguss is going to switch out here. I think I know exactly what Joan is planning. Let's see if this actually comes to fruition as Basculegion finally gets to come out of the field and take advantage of some of these rain turns.
As the Chien-Pao does stay asleep for 3 turns, the Pelipper goes for the Hurricane into Dondozo, bringing it into the red, and Dondozo now takes its 1 guaranteed turn of sleep. Now, with the Chien-Pao taking 3 sleep turns, it will wake up on this specific turn, so it remains to be seen if it goes for Protect, potentially, or if it goes for, say, a Sucker Punch into the Pelipper slot.
Yeah, but I think if you're Joan in this situation, we saw that Aqua Jet is easily able to just tap the Chien-Pao from this range. Obviously, now since you have the speed advantage, you don't really have to worry about Sucker Punch and do have to worry about the priority interactions. And we also know that Dondozo, very, very slow Pokemon. Pelipper, probably going to be faster than this Dondozo, so just also has the option to fire off a Hurricane into it and finally get it off the field. So I'm really liking Joan's position here and what exactly Amoonguss and Pelipper were able to accomplish. I don't think Amoonguss took like any damage while it was on the field, so even switching out, not even going to be able to take advantage of Regenerator, but it's just going to be nice and healthy in the back. Chien-Pao, if you may have forgotten, is confused, so let's see if it even gets an attack off at all. It hits itself in confusion!
Oh my god, that's incredible! The Chien-Pao Confusion ends up knocking itself out after waking up in the Aqua Jet, but the Dondozo lives it, and that was a critical hit on top of the rain and the Life Orb power, but this Hurricane comes out, and Dondozo goes down, so it's 2 Pokemon down on Calc's side in 1 turn with a little bit of friendly fire, and Joan is taking complete advantage in game number 2 right now.
Yeah, just a very, very solid opening part of the game for Joan. Just able to not exactly take advantage of the rain turns here, but just able to leverage Amoonguss and Pelipper in a way to where, you know, they're actually able to do some damage and also disrupt reasonably well. And now you kind of have to do some positioning here because, you know, Basculegion very much appreciates the speed advantage afforded by rain, and I think that makes it slower than Urshifu without the rain being on the field. So we'll have to see how Joan is able to position the rain back in, because I feel like it is going to be a necessity later in the game. But you still have two very reasonably healthy Pokemon in the back. One Pokemon I do think is a bit of a concern here is Ceruledge, because it does have the option for the terrestrialization into the grass type. So if you are able to remove Pelipper, there is a very likely possibility Ceruledge can just kind of get going with bulk ups. And after maybe even just one attack boost, a Shadow Sneak could be the end for either Basculegion or the frail Fluttermane in the back. So Basculegion, recognizing that it's probably going to need to be around for the late game, switches out for Amoonguss.
As we do see the terrestrialization come out from Calc's side, and it goes into the Ceruledge, and the Ceruledge, as you said, Eric, it is the Terra Grass variant, which has been a primary terrestrialization type on Ceruledge, on top of its Flash Fire to take its fire type weakness normally as grass type and make it an immunity. But this Urshifu, recognizing it, goes with the Wicked Blow into the Pelipper and knocks out the Pelipper. And the Ceruledge went for Bitter Blade into the Amoonguss. So while it does massive super effective damage, it also takes Rocky Helmet Shift. That was a beautiful play by Cal.
Yeah, that's one way to swing the momentum back around, is that you get the immediate KO on Pelipper, basically removing the last major threat to a Terra Grass Ceruledge, as the Bitter Blade into the Basculegion, calling out the Amoonguss switching in. So that easily puts it in Wicked Blow range from Urshifu. But unfortunately, now since you've burned the Terra, Urshifu is very much threatened to be KO'd by this Fluttermane here. But there is a way that you could potentially secure a knockout onto this Fluttermane if Shadow Sneak plus Sucker Punch is able to get the knockout. I don't know if it's going to be enough. I'm not 100% sure of my calculations here, but there's a very good chance that this double up might be enough. But there is also the option for the terrestrialization here, eliminating the ghost type weakness and possibly saving this Fluttermane from getting KO'd.
As we do see Urshifu go for being able to avoid any move this turn. The Fluttermane goes for the Dazzling Gleam. Urshifu is protected, but Ceruledge, now that it's grass type, it is not resisted, and it still takes a good damage, but it gets the Citrus Berry recovery here, which allows it to bring its health back up as it goes for the Bitter Blade into the Fluttermane slot. A critical hit into the Fluttermane, gets massive damage and recovers back to full health as Amoonguss goes for the Pollen Puff into the Ceruledge slot, and Ceruledge takes its damage.
That was a very, very nice play from Calc there, recognizing that Urshifu was certainly in danger there, and getting the Bitter Blade, the critical hit actually helping a lot there to comfortably put that Fluttermane in range of being KO'd by the Shadow Sneak. So as it looked like Joan was in the driver's seat after getting the early lead, has now in a position where the forfeit button has been clicked, and it looks like Calc is going to take the game and the set. Very, very well played game to both players. Unfortunately, Joan could not pull the comeback in that game too, but Calc once again proving that they were the better player in the set, getting the ability to turn the momentum around and basically clutching out defeat with the last two Pokemon. Very, very well played to both players, but Calc will be moving on into the next round of Top Cut. What a set. What a great set.
This set was incredible. With the turn 1 terrestrialization and a Terra Poison on the Urshifu in game number 1, it was able to take that Hurricane from the Pelipper, but then in game number 2, being able on Calc's side to recognize the switches and making the correct predictions with a Wicked Blow into the Pelipper to avoid any Hurricane or Tailwind setup, and then a Bitter Blade into the Amoonguss switch in. Essentially, Calc put Joan into a problematic situation that they unfortunately could not break out of, and very well played set by both competitors. Congratulations to Calcs on advancing to the Sweet 16.
Yes, very, very well played set. Just a lot of switching of momentum, especially in that second game. That's kind of what you get with both of these hyper offense teams. Sometimes in order to get back into the game, you do have to make the more aggressive approach. That Bitter Blade into the Basculegion switch and being very, very crucial in keeping that Amoonguss low. And that last Protect play with the Urshifu and being able to get the Bitter Blade onto Fluttermane, just easily putting it in position to get knocked out there. Very, very well played. Congrats to Calc, and congrats to Joan for their top 32 placing in the Wide League World Championship Rumble. We're going to take a quick break, but I promise you we will be back soon with some more action from the Wide League Worlds Rumble. Don't go away. Top 16 coming up next.